At that moment, a rolling and rumbling noise was heard again, louder now and deeper. The ground seemed to quiver under their feet. I think we are in for trouble anyhow, said Frodo. I'm afraid our journey is drawing to an end. Maybe, said Sam, but where there's life, there's hope, as my gaffer used to say. And need of victuals, as he most ways used to add. You have a bite, Mr. Frodo, and then a bit of sleep.
Welcome to the Wayward Wizards podcast. This week we're reading Book 4, Chapter 7 of The Two Towers, Journey to the Crossroads. My name is Logan.
And my name is Zach.
This is another sort of shorty.
Yeah, it's an in-betweener, for sure.
But you know what I realized is Tolkien always spends the time describing like how characters get from one place to another.
Yeah.
Within a chapter, sometimes he'll like jump forward, a day or a little more.
Right.
But like you almost always get some description of like moving through the land.
Yes.
And that's where a lot of like character development and conversations and stuff happen.
I don't know. I think it's interesting, like the kind of the movement across the landscape, the way that he describes like kind of the shift in the geography and the kind of the flora and the fauna towards this like kind of brackish, thorny, nasty, dark place. But they have to get to the crossroads, and that's what this chapter is all about.
Yeah.
But there's some interesting moments in this chapter. I mean, for all its brevity and really not many plot beats happen. There's this bit where Sam says, where there's life, there's hope, which is one of the most quotable lines in the entire book, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
And is really like one of the major themes of Tolkien's whole philosophy, I think. It's not giving up. The other image that is, I think, one of the most powerful images in the entire book is of the kind of toppled head of the statue of the king with the crown of flowers. And that's a really beautiful image.
Yeah, and he even says, I mean, I just love how it's set apart here where it says all about the pedestal where idle scrawls mixed with the foul symbols that the maggot folk of Mordor used. And so even though it's, he really like highlights it in contrast. He's so great at, painting a scene like that. And then also, so it's this imagery, but it's also like in the prose, he's like taking you, even just in a few sentences, he kind of takes you on this like spiritual journey.
Yeah, for sure. Also, I put Farmer Maggot in my notes here.
I thought of that too. Poor guy.
The maggot folk of Mordor, and then we have Farmer Maggot back in the Shire. Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's why did he name him Farmer Maggot? I know we've talked about this 100 times on the podcast.
I think he just likes the word, maggot. It's kind of fun to say, maggot.
Yeah.
I want to talk about these magical staves.
Yeah, the staves. Staves of polished wood, newly shod.
It says that it says that a virtue has been set upon them of finding and returning.
Yeah.
What does that mean? A virtue has been set upon them.
Magic spells, bro.
Means that someone prayed over them or something. There's been like a kind of magic incantation or a blessing.
I think that's exactly what it is. It's like they have like the intention of like the goodwill of the men of Gondor on them.
Yeah, and then in the next chapter, this is getting ahead of ourselves, but in the next chapter, Frodo holds the vial of Galadriel. And the staff at the same time, and sort of like is ready to march forward. He's got these magic talismans with him.
Yeah. But yeah, these are gifts from good people that sort of spiritually bolster Frodo and Sam to kind of get to the end of their journey. We've compared Faramir to Galadriel several times already, and I think this is a perfect example of this. Yeah, the giving of gifts. They're given provision, they're given these staffs, but they're also given the gift of like Faramir's blessing. And I think that counts for something.
Yeah, it seems to count for something, especially because he does have some kind of like superhuman thing about him. Even at the beginning of the chapter, it says that Faramir eats breakfast with the hobbits, and it says that he hasn't slept since the day before, but he didn't
Yeah.
look weary.
Yeah.
So he kind of doesn't need as much sleep as other people, or, he's invested with some kind of power that you don't really get like a full picture of it, but we just get little glimpses of the fact that this guy is
Special.
special. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, what do you think? You want to kind of jump right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So where did we leave last chapter? Last chapter, Gollum has been captured due to some sort of duplicity from Frodo that he feels really morally conflicted about. But this is kind of when like everything all kind of comes to light. Faramir finds out that Gollum was their guide, which he was not happy about.
Yeah.
He also finds out that, you know, Frodo is like going into Mordor to destroy the ring, which is pretty.
The whole ball game right there.
Yeah, it basically all comes out. He'd been kind of using his powers of deduction to kind of arrive at a lot of these conclusions on his own, but it's kind of all laid bare. And Faramir essentially says, like, I don't trust Gollum any farther than I can throw him, and I think that you're doing really unwisely. I don't think this is what Gandalf would have had you do. But Frodo at the end is just like, I have to do this thing, and this is the only way that we could do it. And so there's kind of like this, they kind of leave on this note of like resignation, where Faramir is like, it's a hard doom and a hopeless errand.
Yeah.
But he gives Frodo his blessing, essentially. He's like, when we get to the end of this, I hope we meet up and you're able to tell me that everything worked out okay. But it doesn't seem clear to him in the moment that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But after that, Frodo and Sam return to their beds, and then they rest for a little while. It's already morning, but they sort of go back and kind of settle back down for just a little while longer. They're given water, they're given food, and as you mentioned earlier, Faramir eats breakfast with them, and it says he hasn't slept since the battle the day before.
Faramir wants to send them on their way sort of well provisioned, and I think they do get some provisions, which has got to make Sam happy that they have a little something to eat other than
the lembas that they have left over.
But he also gives them, as we said, he gives them these staves of polished wood shod with iron and with carven heads through which ran plated leathern thongs. So they're really nice, they're like, and I assume they're, just hobbit size. So
yeah, it says they were cut down for their size. Yeah. Recently cut down and newly shod. Yeah.
So Faramir had somebody work on these, I think, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have written in my notes here, blessing and gifts.
Yeah.
So it says, you have little provision, but some small store of food fit for travelers I have ordered to be stowed in your packs. So, you can imagine it's like dried fruits and cured meats and maybe like a little bit of bread that won't last very long. But then he also says that he's sent scouts ahead, some basically all the way to near these crossroads that they're heading towards, and that the land is empty. He says, I don't know what to think of this, essentially, but a storm is coming. So that's where he gives them these two, walking sticks. And he says, I have no fitting gifts to give you at our parting, but take these staves. They may be of service to those who walk or climb in the land. I love Frodo's response to these gifts and this blessing. There he goes, most gracious host, it was said to me by Elrond Half-Elven that I should find friendship upon the way, secret and unlooked for. Certainly I looked for no such friendship as you have shown. To have found it turns evil to great good.
Yeah, invoking Elrond's name is pretty powerful, I think.
Yeah, a homely house, time of like rest and respite, provision, right before they go into this wilderness.
And then Gollum is hauled out of some hiding hole.
Some hiding hole, yeah.
And Faramir says that he has to be blindfolded. But, Frodo and Samwise don't. But Frodo, he like reaches for that equality again, the same as in Lothlorien, and says, "You can blindfold us too." It's kind of funny because I just don't think Gollum would he even notice? I don't know. Can he accept that kind of graciousness on Frodo's part? I'm not sure he can.
He can't because, once they kind of get away from this place and they go off on their own, the very first thing he does is start talking crap about the Rangers. And Frodo has some words for him. But, yeah, he says, blindfold me first, essentially, which is such a good leader move. It's like, let me be the first to have to do this thing.
It shows Frodo's leadership, and I think it also shows that Frodo is still not totally into the sway of the ring. He's still himself, to a degree, and it matters that he shows compassion toward Smeagol, even though Smeagol can't even really receive it.
Right. They kind of receive these blindfolds and they start walking down out of this place, and they move far enough away that the falls can't be heard anymore. And Faramir takes their blindfolds off. And he says, "Here is the last parting of our ways." And this is a bit that I really wanted to take some time to highlight. It says, "He embraced the hobbits then, after the manner of his people, stooping and placing his hands upon their shoulders and kissing their foreheads." And he says, "Go with the goodwill of all good men." And then the hobbits bow and kind of receive this blessing. In Boromir's death scene, as Boromir is confessing to Aragorn about his failure, the way that he tried to take the ring from Frodo, and kind of seeks absolution from Aragorn, he says, "Farewell, Aragorn. Go to Minas Tirith and save my people. I have failed." And Aragorn responds, "No," and says, Aragorn takes his hand and kisses his brow. "You have conquered. Few have gained such a victory. Be at peace. Minas Tirith shall not fall." And then Boromir smiles and dies. And so there's an echo here, Faramir bending down and kissing the brow of Frodo and Sam, and Aragorn, stooping above Boromir's body as he lay dying and kissing his brow in farewell.
Yeah.
I just think it's a really beautiful parallel.
It is, yeah. Go with the goodwill of all good men, says Faramir, and then the Faramir and the merry men kind of dissolve into the forest.
It says they marveled to see what speed these green-clad men now moved, vanishing almost in the twinkling of an eye. Beautiful.
And so Frodo and Sam and Gollum are in the land on their own again. So, as you said before, Gollum takes the opportunity to say, run down the people who just had mercy on him.
Yeah, he says, "Nasty, wicked men. Smeagol's neck still hurts him. Yes, it does. Let's go." And yeah, Frodo's like, "Yeah, we got to go, but watch your mouth."
Right.
After Frodo tells him to shut up, Gollum goes, "Nice, master. Smeagol was only joking. Always forgives, he does. Yes, yes. Even nice master's little tricksies. Oh, yes. Nice master. Nice Smeagol." So he's kind of drudging up Frodo's behavior and being like, "Yeah, they're nasty and you're nasty, just like them."
Right.
And, yeah, it's just very off-putting.
They go a little ways. They stop a couple times. They eat some provisions. They try to sleep a little, or they at least just rest. And then Gollum gets them up, and it says that the day passed much as the day before had gone, except that the silence seemed deeper. The air grew heavy, and it began to be stifling under the trees. So to me, that's humidity. And it felt as if thunder was brewing.
Yeah.
And Gollum, but Gollum also is detecting something else. He says that he paused sniffing the air,
Yeah.
and he would mutter to himself and urge them to a greater speed.
Right.
So it's both, it's both the natural world, but it's also the way that kind of Mordor
Yeah.
influences the natural world, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. These armies they're about to have this like great march out of Minas Morgul,
Right.
led by the Witch King of Angmar. I think that, what they're all sensing this, like the air kind of like getting more electric is this kind of like moment before the moment. There's this like dreadful anticipation that
Yeah.
is kind of just hovering over them. So we get kind of a couple days of movement here. They kind of have their first march with a couple rests, and it talks about they eat. And then it says the next day passed much as the day before, except the silence seemed deeper. So they're kind of like now into like the kind of their second march, and they're moving towards these crossroads. And Frodo asks, do you know where we are? And Gollum says, yes, master, dangerous places. This is the road from the Tower of the Moon down into the ruined city by the shores of the river. The ruined city, yes, very nasty place, full of enemies. We shouldn't have taken the men's advice. Hobbits have come a long way out of the path. Must go east now, away from here.
It's interesting that, we're told that there's like, they don't see a beast or a bird. And I don't know how many beasts you would see, but you almost certainly would see a bird walking through the forest, But we're also told by Gollum that this is a place where people come, that this is not a safe road. People come down here. And so the hobbits and Gollum are like stuck in this space where it's empty, but it's also constantly under threat. And there's something so foreboding about that, And
Right.
like you're just saying, like we're in this kind of period of almost like a deep breath has been taken in, and there's just a waiting.
Right.
And so, Gollum's discomfort is underlined by it's that way in which nature, we talked about this all the way back in, when the hobbits were leaving the Shire or Hobbiton, where nature reflects what's going on in interior, like in the interior, or even in like the more, I guess here, this is not exactly the interiority of the hobbits exactly, but it's more kind of holds the like plot in a way, like the plot is ready to like break open and become Return of the King.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that sort of starts here. Yeah, I just think that juxtaposition between the stillness that they're in and the threat of really violence is so striking to me.
So Gollum is like, we have to keep moving, but the hobbits basically insist that they need to take a rest. Frodo says, what shall we do? We've walked long and far. Shall we look for some place in the woods behind where we can lie hidden? And Gollum's like, there's no use hiding in the dark. It's in the day that the hobbits must hide now. Yes, in the day. But Sam is like, hey, like, we can't keep going. Like, we have to rest for a bit. Even if we get up again in the middle of the night and keep walking, we have to rest. And it says that Gollum agreed to this reluctantly, but they sit down and they take a rest, and Gollum just like curls up and goes to sleep. But the hobbits stay awake for a little bit longer.
It says that they sleep in the crotch of a large holm oak, and it made a good hiding place. It's fairly comfortable, and it's sort of it made me wonder, like, if I was the hobbits, I would never sleep next to a tree ever again after sleeping next to Old Man Willow.
Yeah, that's a good point.
like, it's this tree gonna eat me while I'm trying to sleep? But apparently they do find a nice spot there.
Yeah, I hadn't caught that they were like up in a tree.
Yeah, they're kind of like up. They kind of like, it's like easy, I think, to kind of climb up into it somehow.
Yeah, it says Gollum wouldn't rest on the ground so near the road.
Right.
And so after some debate, they all climbed up into the crotch of a large holm oak, whose thick branches springing together from the trunk made a good hiding place and a fairly comfortable refuge. So they're like nested up in a tree.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Actually, my neighbor across the street has a tree just like that, where a whole bunch of branches seem to have come together you know?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And it's not that far off the ground. It's only like 6 feet or something like that. But for a hobbit, that's pretty high actually. A couple stories to a hobbit.
Yeah,
Um,
no kidding. Gosh.
but uh, but it also says the hobbits didn't shut their eyes, so they rest, but they don't necessarily sleep.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Really interesting. But Gollum goes right to sleep. Really odd, even
Yeah.
though he doesn't want to rest.
Here's the description where, and I think we mentioned this a few chapters ago, how Gollum can tell what time of night it is by sniffing the air.
Yeah, weird.
It says it must have been a little after midnight when Gollum woke up. Suddenly, they were aware of his pale eyes, unlidded, gleaming at them. He listened and sniffed, which seemed, as they had noticed before, his usual method of discovering the time of night. Are we rested? Have we had beautiful sleep? Let's go.
Is that some like old wisdom about
Sniffing the
like
air.
some farmer wisdom about sniffing the air to tell what time it is?
I think it's just supposed to make him seem like more like reptilian.
I guess so. Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, he has like some sense that like normal like mammals don't have.
Yeah. But the way he says this is so gross. Are we rested? Have we had beautiful sleep? He said.
Yeah.
Ugh. Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. He's got this like kind of like he's simultaneously menacing and childlike.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he also has this kind of like patronizing tone. Like he just doesn't have a lot of words, you know? Like he has nasty and tricksy and false for like negatives, and then he has like beautiful and
Nice.
nice and
Yeah.
good, you know. So but it just seems like so out of place, doesn't it? Like, have you had beautiful sleep? Like it's almost like something you'd say to like a small child or something.
That's really odd.
Sam's response is really funny.
We aren't and we haven't, but we'll go if we must. And then Gollum gallops off on all fours.
He just jumps out of this tree and lands on all fours, and the hobbits follow more slowly. Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Such an odd character.
So they keep moving eastward, and you know we kind of get the description of the landscape is changing to be more thicket, fewer trees, more just kind of like spiky, thorny, terrible shrubs. It says that they're moving through thickets and wastes of brambles, which sounds like a terrible way to have to kind of maneuver around this landscape. Tolkien says for the most part it was covered with a thick growth of gorse and whortleberry and low, tough thorns, though here and there clearings opened, the scars of recent fires.
It reminds me of the old forest a little.
Yeah.
Just it being kind of like choked, you know.
Choked up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It says so tall were the spinny thickets that the hobbits could walk upright under them, passing through long, dry aisles. I think it's, you know, these are just enormous shrubbery.
It's like a hedge around Mordor.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like wire, like a, you know, barbed wire.
Like a barbed wire fence. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, this is a battlement, and it's almost like the land is like a battlement too.
Right. It's funny that the hobbits can just kind of walk right under it though, because they're so small, I guess.
Yeah.
They really are the right guys to be doing this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like Gandalf's wisdom is so deep that he found just the perfect people to be able to walk through this horrible place unseen. I love this you know, Gollum is kind of urging them on that day is coming soon. We have to hurry and we can't be in the open. Says he quickened his pace and they followed him warily. Soon they began to climb up onto a great hogback of land.
Yeah.
So they're kind of getting into the foothills of the mountains.
Yeah.
There's a hogback not far from where I live. And it really is like the description of the way a hog has a ridge on its back.
Yeah.
And it's narrow at the top.
Right.
And so we always say like, oh, you just drive along the hogback and then, you know, you exit here and you'll be at Red Rocks. Like that's
right.
And it's all part of the foothills of the Rocky Mountains here.
Wow.
And so there's a description here that is really for me, it's just very familiar in a way.
Yeah.
And I can kind of imagine, you know, Frodo and Sam like scrambling up the hogback and then down the other side in order to get into the mountains.
And I bet you if you climb up that hogback, you're going to be like completely ripped to shreds by briar and
Yeah, it's not.
branches.
I mean, it's a little different because it's so dry here, but yeah, I mean, it's not like a. It wouldn't be easy, first of all, because it really is steep, and the places where the road goes through, like crews literally had to use dynamite to get through, right? So that's that's how the land has been shaped by kind of industry.
Wow.
But in this case, it's really a interesting kind of natural description, and I don't know, there aren't really mountains like this in England, and so I kind of wonder, is this like a description that had Tolkien kind of seen this, in the Alps somewhere or something,
Oh,
like
yeah, almost
or
certainly.
the Pyrenees, right?
Yeah.
Um, just that word hogback really jumped out to me on this reading. I don't think I had noticed it before.
They find their shelter for like their next rest. I guess they're sleeping during the day at this point, right?
Yeah.
In this like hollowed out briar that's like the roof is just like leaves that have fallen on top of it. It's almost like a place that a deer would bed down or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It says they lay there for a while, too tired yet to eat, and they peer out through the holes in the covert and they watch for the slow growth of day. But no day came, only a dead brown twilight.
Ugh. This is so threatening. In the east, there was a dull red glare under the lowering cloud. It was not the red of dawn. You're like, well, what is it?
Yeah, the red glare. Do you imagine that's the fires of Mount Doom?
I guess, yeah.
Or just kind of the fires of industry that
Or
are.
just the fires of, yeah, I was going to say that, like kind of the way you kind of, kind of like a city far off, you can kind of see the light glowing. So maybe it's both. I don't know.
I was even thinking like how you can, if it's a cloudy night and there's a big wildfire, like, many, many miles away, you can kind of see the red reflected under the cloud cover.
Yeah, right.
That's kind of what I imagined through here. It says the red glare over Mordor died away. The twilight deepened as great vapors rose in the east and crawled above them. So it's like you have this like the smoke just rising over Mordor. It's what's blocking out the sun.
Whenever Tolkien describes something as vapors, I always think about like mustard gas.
Yeah, it's hard not to have those associations when you're reading this.
Yeah, World War One kind of allusions.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the briars and how it's like, kind of mangles of barbed wire,
Yeah,
and then the vapors of the land, kind of the constant darkness from the smoke of fires. It's just it's
yeah.
not where you want to be.
He says the tumbled lands between, which, yeah, I think,
Mm,
not to put too fine a point on it, but is sort of maybe like a no man's land image.
yeah, the psalm. Yeah,
I actually don't think that was in his mind necessarily, like directly. I think he's just describing kind of a blasted land, but it definitely makes you think of that. I don't know how you can read it and not sort of
yeah,
know something about Tolkien and not think of it.
yeah. Gollum goes off. They're laying there and they're you know taking a little bit of food and a little bit of water. Gollum takes some water, but none of the food. It's interesting. Gollum won't even eat like
Yeah,
fruit and
man food.
yeah. And Sam just assumes he's going off hunting. I think like in these next couple chapters, whenever Gollum goes off, he's up to no good.
Yeah,
I think in the next chapter, especially when he leaves them on the stair, he's going to essentially let Shelob know that they're coming.
yeah, I agree.
But Sam falls asleep here. Frodo keeps watch, and he has this like uncomfortable dream. Did you kind of take note of this dream that he has?
Yeah, where he thinks he's back at the Bag End Garden.
Yeah, but he's wearing a heavy pack,
Right.
and he's like looking for something, which like what a relatable dream. You're like,
Yeah, I know.
what I can't find it, and but he sees that the garden at Bag End is all overgrown with bracken and thorns and weeds, and he realizes what he's looking for is his pipe. And he wakes up to himself and he thinks, oh, Of course, the pipe's in my pack. And his pack's in his dream, too, which I think he can't even get away from this pack in his dreams.
Yeah.
But he realizes that he doesn't have any leaf to smoke and that he's hundreds of miles from Bag End.
Why had his master let him sleep on out of turn right until evening?
Haven't you had no sleep, Mr. Frodo? What's the time? Seems to be getting late. There's someone, they always ask what time it is when they wake up, which I guess I do too, but we've kind of pointed that out as like a...
It's really odd. I can't get over it, how Victorian they are.
Yeah.
Like they do think of time in kind of an industrial way, like with clocks and,
Yeah.
and it's measured and there's a time for tea and a time for breakfast and a time for, that's not how people thought about time in that like kind of more linear way.
No. In like the Middle Ages or whatever. This is
No,
supposed
they
to be.
thought about it as and I think it's totally natural to think about time as like a circle.
Yeah.
Right. But before
Mhm.
the invention of certainly physics, but even
Yeah.
before, even before that, like clocks and stuff like that. And so it just kind of marks them out as
More modern.
more modern, but also they're in a situation that's novel for them at all times.
Yeah.
And they get to that, I think, in the next chapter where like, you're the wrong people to be on this adventure,
Yeah.
and but yeah, to wake up and ask what time it is so odd. But I love Frodo's, they're such natural like communicators with each other. What's the time? Seems to be getting late. No, it isn't, said Frodo. That's so funny.
Yeah.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
Actually,
Like, relax. Like, I
the
can
day's
tell you're...
getting yeah, the day's getting darker instead of lighter, darker and darker. As far as I can tell, it isn't midday yet, and you've only slept for about 3 hours.
Yeah, so it seems like, it's like, we talk about the natural world. I think Mordor is naturally darker because of the fires of this volcano and,
Yeah,
the way
more
they...
clouds and
the
right.
way they burn, there's like less, the sun isn't able to penetrate that darkness as much, but it does seem like this darkness is more than just the weather or even from this volcano or whatever else. It's...
Yeah, Sauron can kind of send out a darkness, right? He can
Yes. Yes.
right.
It's getting physically darker, and it's like practically to prepare for the orcs to be able to march during the day because
Yes,
they're weakened by the sun.
right.
So this is a sign that, this battle is about to happen. Storm is brewing, as Faramir said just a little while ago. And that's exactly what Sam says. He goes, "Is there a storm coming? If so, it's going to be the worst one there ever was. We shall wish we were down in a deep hole, not just stuck under a hedge." And he goes, "What is that? Thunder or drums? What is it?" There they are talking like they're rabbits again, Make you wish you were in a deep hole.
Yeah, I was going to mention that when they were lying under the briar bracken or whatever.
And Sam, he says like, where's Gollum got off to? Hasn't he come back yet? And Frodo's like, no, he's been gone for... So at this point, he's been gone for like 3 hours.
At least 3 hours, yeah, maybe longer.
And Sam says, "I've never taken anything on a journey that I'd be less sorry to lose on the way.
Yeah, I underlined that.
But it would be just like him after coming all these miles to go and get lost now, just when we shall need him most." It's so interesting. He's like, it'd be just like him to go get lost. It's like, bro, you were lost.
You're exactly, like you're the one who's lost.
You don't know where you are.
Frodo's like, you forget the marshes. We'd be dead if it wasn't for Gollum, right?
So many times. I mean, even the area before the marshes, they were walking in circles before Gollum came. He says, "I hope he's up to no tricks. And anyway, I hope he doesn't fall into other hands, as you might say, because if he does, we shall soon be in for trouble." So he's saying, like, basically, like, all right, if Gollum gets abducted while he's out there by orcs, then we're really in for it. And I mean, that's like, we kind of find out that's exactly what Gollum is like about to do, not to orcs, but to a giant
Shelob
spider monster. And Frodo says, "I think we're in for trouble anyhow. I'm afraid our journey is drawing to an end." So there's this kind of resignation from Frodo here, where I think the weight of the ring is getting heavier and heavier as they're kind of moving towards this terrible place, like kind of the ring's natural like gravitational center.
Yep.
But there's also just this like how can we possibly survive this? I mean, the odds are completely stacked against them.
And that's been Frodo's viewpoint for several chapters.
Yeah.
Really for the whole book, really for all of book 4.
Yeah.
He's like, we are going to our deaths. That's what we're
Yeah.
doing.
We don't need to worry about having, all our food figured out because we're not
And
going to.
Sam's like, Mr. Frodo.
Yeah, come on. Like,
Where
even if
there's
that's
life,
the case,
there's
we
hope.
can't. Yeah, we can't. Yeah, I mean, and that's such a beautiful response, isn't it?
And
Where
it's
there's life, there's hope.
And it's the gaffer's response.
Yeah.
So Sam lives in this world where he's constantly run down by the gaffer, but also the gaffer has this like wisdom about the world.
Yeah.
Where there's life, there's hope. Even that is kind of like qualified and need of victuals, as he most always used to say.
Yeah, where there's life, there's need for food. But it's such a it's not over till it's over kind of mentality that's what lets them succeed in the end. Is that just refusal to quit.
Right. Sam 100% has to be here. And I'm a Frodo type.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe most of us are sort of a Frodo type. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe that's not fair, but I certainly am like a let's march to our deaths type of person.
Yeah. And we're probably going to fail.
Right. but I really have grown as I have gotten older. I used to kind of sneer at this, but I hope as I've matured, I can't say that I've taken or have the sort of capacity to take like a Sam optimism toward things.
Yeah.
But I certainly appreciate an optimistic person who can be like, you know what, Logan, get over it. Come on.
It's going to be fine.
It's going to be fine. We're here together and we're going to do this together. And
if there isn't a way, we'll find a way.
Yeah. And that's a more useful orientation toward
We'll make
life.
a way.
Right.
If there isn't a way, then like we're going to make a way.
Right. And that's a more, I think, useful orientation toward life. And it's one that I kind of strive for. I always fail, but having Sam here to like buck Frodo up is, I don't know. He just increasingly becomes the person the story needs.
And he basically says like, you need to eat and you need to sleep.
And that's how often in life is like that the correct advice? Like
that's the way out of this thing.
Either eat a little something, you'll feel better, or, sleep on it, you'll feel better in the morning. And
that's true. I mean, yeah. How many times have I told my kids that the world isn't ending? They just need a snack.
Yeah, exactly. You just need a little dopamine in your brain from, a piece of chocolate. You'll feel better.
All is not lost. You just need to go to bed because it's bedtime.
Right.
I wanted to point out here a little preview for next week. There's a moment when Frodo, when they're on the stairs, he's despaired and he's weak, but it says that he smiles grimly and says that what he had to do if he could.
Yeah.
Which is such a beautiful, like, if I can do it, I gotta do it. And I won't know if I can do it unless I try.
Yeah.
So I got to get my butt up and just put one foot in front of the other.
Yep.
And just choose not to quit.
Exactly.
But it says he had to do it whether Faramir or Aragorn or Elrond or Galadriel or Gandalf or anyone else ever knew about it. Like, that's such a beautiful, like, those are the people he's in the back of his mind. He maybe up to that point is like, I can't let these guys down.
Yeah.
But he's like, if I die out here, no one's even going to know.
Right. That's his despair.
How far I got.
Right. But in that moment, in the moment you're talking about, he really, it does turn there. It becomes about Frodo. It's Frodo. He maybe owns it for the very first time. It's like, I'm just here to do this thing and we're going to accomplish it. And if nobody knows, it's worth accomplishing because it's my task.
That's kind of Sam's mentality here. He's like, you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, buddy. And we all need someone like that in our lives who kind of just like has the perspective that it's the, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you kind of mentality that Sam has that really bolsters Frodo and keeps him alive. Even if he doesn't have hope, he kind of doesn't need it because Sam is like, we can't see the hope, but we're still alive. And that's where the hope is.
It also reminds me, I had a boss back in the day who said that everyone wants to be a part of the revolution, but nobody wants to do the dishes.
Yeah, that's a great line. You've mentioned that to me before.
And nobody's going to pat you on the back for doing the dishes. And Frodo's not exactly doing the dishes. He's actually like the main part of the revolution in this case, right?
Yes.
But I still think it comes to the point where it's like, even if you don't have an audience,
Yeah.
the small thing that you do, right, just putting your one foot in front of the other,
Yeah.
especially in the face of some kind of great calamity like, Sauron, is worthwhile. And it's those small things actually that add up in the end to the true resistance. It's not the people who, necessarily have the megaphone or whatever. Yeah, that line is in my mind all the time. Like, just do the dishes,
Yeah. Yeah. One foot in front of the other. So Sam sort of coaxes Frodo into sleep. He is like, you let me sleep for a few hours. Now you get your turn. And it says Frodo slept unquietly, turning and tossing, and sometimes murmuring. Twice Sam thought he heard him speaking Gandalf's name. I think Gandalf is on his mind, and he, you know, in the bit that I just read from next chapter, he clearly is thinking like, I can't let Gandalf down. And so maybe that's why Gandalf's on his mind. But I think there's also the sense that Gandalf himself is like extending his thoughts to give Frodo some comfort in his sleep. I can't help but think that Gandalf is somehow strengthening Frodo through this kind of dream state.
I think there's enough evidence in the text of the way dreams work that
Yeah.
that's pretty well supported. Yeah.
So Gollum comes back, and here again is this kind of like strange, jarring tone. Wake up, wake up, wake up, sleepies. Wake up. No time to lose. We must go. Yes, we must go at once. No time to lose. This kind of like, he's such a nasty, terrible person, but then he puts on this like kind of fake optimistic tone, almost like a motherly kind of tone.
Yeah.
That's very out of place.
It is totally out of place.
It's like the world's worst nanny or something. Sam looks up at him suspiciously. He seemed frightened or excited. So I think he's been off doing something, untoward.
Yeah.
Go now, said Sam. What's your little game? It isn't time yet. Can't be tea time even. Leastways not in decent places where there is a tea time.
We're not
Gollum
in decent
says,
places.
Yeah, Gollum says, we're not in decent places, silly.
It's a great line.
Yeah. We must go. Wake up, master. And he claws at Frodo and startles him out of sleep.
Frodo grabs his arm.
Yeah, because he's like startles him out of sleep. Yeah, it says he seized his arm and Gollum tore himself loose and backed away.
Yeah, such an interesting little, moment where Gollum is always kind of pawing at Frodo, but when Frodo reaches out to grab him, he can't be, he doesn't want to be touched. They mustn't be silly. We must go. No time to lose.
So he's agitated. He's in this kind of like, anxious state, and he's trying to like convince them that he's not, that everything's fine, that they just have to move. But Sam is deeply suspicious of this. It says where he had been and what he thought was brewing to make him in such a hurry, he would not say. So it seems like he knows this army is about to come. This army that we see coming next chapter. And so Sam does what he can. He's, hoists up his pack and says they go out into the ever gathering darkness. And that's where they finally, after a few hours, they get to the crossroads. So what are the roads that are crossing here? Did you kind of work that out logistically? Did you? All right. So I kind of drew like a little.
I thought to myself, my friend Zach will tell me.
So they get to, we call it the crossroads. Literally, this is where a road is crossing, and you have, you can turn left, you can turn right, you can go straight, or you can double back.
Yeah.
It goes, in the very center, 4 ways met. Behind them lay the road to the Moranon. Before them it ran out again upon the long journey south. To the right, the road from Old Osgiliath came climbing up and crossing, passed out eastward and into darkness. The 4th way, the road they were to take, that's the road to the Tower of the Moon. And Frodo is just filled with dread. by this.
It's interesting that he's filled with dread. It reminds me of Bilbo's wisdom about the road that goes from your front door, right? Something about the way that description, the road from Osgiliath. This is all. There's also a way in which this road is connected all the way back to the Shire.
Yeah, for sure.
And obviously, like the path that they've taken all the way from there to here.
Yeah. They've gotten swept up in it.
Yeah, swept up but now they're at this place where, Frodo has a much fuller picture of what the world is like and what's in store for him. But they get a little vision of hope here.
Yeah, it's interesting. It says that the sun was sinking. Gondor, they can see, is like, covered in shadow, but the sun kind of like peeks in. It says, falling in an ominous fire toward the yet unsullied sea. Which is one of my favorite lines in the entire book.
Yet unsullied sea is beautiful. Yeah.
Let me take it back. I'm going to read that whole sentence, actually. I think this is so gorgeous. It goes, there, far away, beyond sad Gondor, now overwhelmed in shade, the sun was sinking, finding at last the hem of the great slow-rolling pall of cloud, and falling in an ominous fire towards the yet unsullied sea. Says the brief glow fell upon a huge sitting figure, still and solemn, as the great stone kings of the Argonath. The years had gnawed it, and violent hands had maimed it. Its head was gone, and in its place was set in mockery a round, rough-hewn stone, rudely painted by savage hands in the likeness of a grinning face, with one large red eye in the middle of its forehead.
And it says, suddenly caught by the level beams, Frodo saw the old king's head. It was lying rolled away by the roadside. Look, Sam, he cried. I don't know if I can do this. Look, Sam, he cried, startled into speech. Look, the king has got a crown again.
Yeah.
And they see the eyes and the carven beard broken. But it says, about the high, stern forehead there was a coronal of silver and gold. A trailing plant with flowers like small white stars had bound itself across the brows as if in reverence for the fallen king. And in the crevices of his stony hair yellow stonecrop gleamed.
They cannot conquer forever, said Frodo. And then the sun dips away and vanishes, as if at the shuddering of a lamp, and black night fell. And that's how the chapter ends.
Only gets blacker from here.
Well, good
pod.
Good episode, man. Yeah, good
Absolutely.
pod. Thanks so much for reading along with us on the Wayward Wizards radio program. Next week, we'll be reading Book 4, Chapter 8, The Stairs of Cirith Ungol. If you want to help out the podcast, you can follow us on any of the places that you get podcasts. And you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, which is one of the best ways that people can find us. So give us 5 stars, write a little blurb. You can always follow us on YouTube. We love it when you leave comments on our YouTube videos. And visit waywardwizards.com for more info.
And until next week, the sun will soon rise above the shadow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.